my name's Travis Bull Johnson. I'm running for Congress against Michelle Fishbach.
There's no money in ending war. There's no money in limiting government.
No more.
To me, part of what makes America great are our small businesses, our small farms, and that's what's getting squeezed out by the establishment politicians.
That's why I say, raise cattle and not taxes. And my name's Travis Bull Johnson.
Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Bull. As usual, give away a few quick seconds here to see who will tune in. I do want to thank everybody for joining us this morning. This morning's show on excuse me, episode of Power is about third parties. As I was going over the numbers from this last election, there's a lot of things that occurred to me about third parties. The 2024 senatorial race came up as far as trying to see what kind of impact that's going to have on third parties. To give you an idea, in Minnesota, for a political party, you basically have three categories. You have a major party, a minor party, and you have a party that's not really major or minor at that point. To become a major party, the previous election for a statewide race, meaning governor, senator, secretary of state, auditor, so forth, you need to have gotten 5% of that vote. That party needs to have gotten 5% of any one of those elections to be considered a major party. To be a minor party, you needed to have at least 1%. Any party that does not get at least 1% is kind of fits into that other political party category. Why is that important? In Minnesota, it's important because in Minnesota they have a program that will basically reimburse people up to $50 for donations that they give up to a minor or a major political party. So again, in order for people to be able to reimburse for giving you money, you need to hit one of those two milestones, minor or a major party. If you don't, people still donate to you, but they can't necessarily get the matching funds back from the state. While I don't think that's going to make a big difference as far as people being willing to donate, it may make a difference on how much they're willing to donate. So that's a big issue. You also qualify for that money if a candidate is running for a state office, but not a federal office. So there's a couple ways to access those funds. But the primary way that we see most often is for either a major or a minor party. That's what makes the senatorial race coming up in 2024 interesting as far as that's concerned. That is the only statewide race other than president in 2024. By the way, the state vote for president also counts for that 1 or that 5% number. On governor elections, where there's 4 or possibly 5 opportunities to get that 1% or that 5% to become a major or a minor party. But of course, with 2024, your only option is with the Senate race. Now, in 2024, the Senate race that's coming up for re-election is Amy Klobuchar. Amy is a strong candidate, and she's going to be rough for anybody on the GOP or otherwise to compete. In a lot of cases, I see this as the opposite of the race we just ran for Congress. For Congress, we had Michelle Fishbach in there in a heavily Republican district. The Democrats really never had a chance, so they didn't really run a serious campaign. What that basically meant is there was a lot of room for another party or another individual like myself to go in there and grab 5 or 6% of the vote, because the Democrats really weren't sold on their candidate, and the Republicans thought it was in the bag, so it wasn't a big issue to them. I see the next senatorial race being the same thing, except from the the Democrat perspective. Democrats aren't going to be real excited about voting for Amy Klobuchar because, again, she's got it in the bag. And after this last showing, the GOP has proven they cannot be competitive in a statewide race. So at the same time, you're going to have a lot of Republicans not really being sold on or really enthused about their own candidate and their chances to get onto there. What that means is an ideal opportunity for third parties to be able to get to that major party or even minor party status. Uh, it's going to be a very big issue, very, very important on the 2024 election because multiple reasons. One, as of last election, we had four major parties. Now we're down to three. The four major parties we had was the DFL, the Republicans, legalized marijuana now, and grassroots cannabis. 4 years ago, the legalized marijuana now candidate, or 2 years ago, succeeded in getting 6% of the vote. That basically resets their 4-year time limit to keep their party status. Grassroots cannabis did not. This past election, again, grassroots cannabis did not make the 5% rate for any of the governor's race or the statewide races. They lost major party status. Legal marijuana now has major party status until 2024. If they fail to get 5% in that senatorial race, then they will also lose major party status. So you say that's a very important election for them. Uh, Now, any other party, or like say the Libertarian Party, if they want to attain major party status, that is going to be their only option other than president in 2024. The Libertarians, unlike legal marijuana now, do typically have a presidential candidate. However, in history with Minnesota, they have not yet been able to come close to that 5% mark. That's one of the things that's made my indecision on what to do in 24 a little bit more interesting because people have seen we can go in a major race such as U.S. Congress and get that so important 5%. As such, there are different parties who have reached out to me about the possibility of running. Uh, there's also on the horizon the potential for a new political party that's currently forming. That's going to have libertarian views without a lot of the libertarian without a lot of their baggage, so to speak. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens with that third party, which is going to be the Constitutional Republic Party. So we're going to wait and see how that all fleshes out. But that's one reason why it is so 2024 elections are going to be so important for third parties. Because even though there are a pool of people who aren't going to be excited about voting either way, that pool is still limited. Okay, there's still only so many votes for multiple parties to get 5%. It's probably not going to happen. I mean, I looked through every election, every major election this past year, for House, for Senate, for governors. When a Republican and a Democrat were present, there were only two races where a third party candidate got at least 5% of the vote. We were one of the two. Okay, so this is still a pretty high mountain to climb when you do have both the Republicans and the Democrats present. While the Republicans, I don't think are going to have much of a shot. They're going to run somebody. So again, that leaves a certain amount of leeway for a third party to get that 5%, but it's not going to be easy. I mean, there are other ways to get major party status, of one of which is petitioning. For petitioning, you need to get at least 5% of the previous elections voters to sign a petition. Well, we had almost 2.5 million people vote in the governor election. That means if you wanted to be a major party by petition, you'd have basically 1 year to collect 150,000 signatures. While it's possible, I mean, it's not very feasible. Okay, you'd have to have a lot of volunteers to make that happen. The other option to get on there is you have the previous election, you had to have run at least one candidate in half of the House seats, the state House seats, not seats, and half of the state Senate seats, as well as one of the big four state parties to get major party status. Of course, that's not going to happen over this next election because for at least 4 years, because you're not going to have another governor's election. So, in all feasibility, in order to get major party status in Minnesota, the only chance is for them to get 5% in this 2024 Senate race. Why is major party status important? If you're considered a major party in Minnesota, then you no longer have to petition to get on the ballot. As a major party, you have basically one slot in every election guaranteed to you as long as you have a candidate to fill it. That's one of the reasons we were able to get on for the congressional race, is because Legal Marijuana Now was a major party and they had a slot for this congressional race and did not have one of their own candidates at that point lined up for it. So they asked us if we were willing to take that slot. Uh, so that's one of the reasons why major party status is so important. Uh, and again, that's one of the reasons why we're even considering a race in 2024, is because you can win without winning, if that makes any sense. You can win the election, not win the election, but win by getting that 5%, which will allow a third party to compete in future elections for at least 4 years in Minnesota. I think that's very important. I mean, I think third parties as a whole are very important because you have to be able to have a choice. You have to be able to give people options. It is very hard to collect signatures to get on the ballot. I mean, if you're trying to do it for multiple races, it's even more difficult because to a certain extent, you're competing. When you can't just go up to somebody and say, "Hey, I just want your signature." No, they need to fill out their signature, their address, a lot of other information that takes time. People don't want to do that 5, 6, 7 times for that many different candidates. Okay. So it makes that becoming a major party more important because you don't have to go through all of that. And why is that so important is because there's much better chances of third parties winning races for state level offices. One reason for that is, as a third party candidate running for state senate. Well, a state senate district is small enough that over the period of a year, you can go and knock on every door. You can go introduce yourself to everybody. You can get everybody to understand who you are. You can't necessarily do that for a big race. Okay. So your chances of being able to make a difference and get elected are a lot easier on these smaller state races, but you still need to get on the ballot. Okay. You still need to be able to give people that option. Okay. And so that's what makes it so important to get that major party status is in a state like Minnesota, you have the option, you can fill 80 slots for state representative or 90 slots for state, or leaves 88 state representative slots. You can fill 40 something Senate slots with people who are outside the two-party system to give people that choice. And a lot for a lot of times that may be their only way of getting them out there and getting one the choice, give them that choice. Because again, after this year, I can tell you, going out there and actually collecting signatures, it ain't easy. Okay, so that's what's going to become really interesting with 2024. I know Legal Marijuana Now is trying to recruit a candidate now. The Libertarian Party is looking at a couple options for their candidate, and if this new third party comes to being, you're going to have at least three parties competing to get that 5% range to get major party status. And again, that's not gonna make it harder because again, there's only so many votes they're gonna be able to try to split. Uh, so it's gonna make it very important for these parties to start organizing and preparing now, with the goal of getting that 5%. Uh, and as I said, I mean, it's frustrating right now for the American people and for the people in Minnesota because in reality they don't have many choices. Okay, when they go to the polls, it's very important to be able to give them other options. Okay, it's very important that we extend as many parties as possible to give as many people an option as possible. Because let's face it, we don't all fit into two boxes, either the Republicans or the Democrats. There's just so much on there that we don't agree with, maybe from either party. Where if you have 3 or 4 or 5 parties, we're more likely to find something that we're a better fit for. Take a look at one of our comments here. From Paul, the country and the states are too far right, too far left. We need someone with common sense to bring us back together. You know what, Paul? I completely agree. That's kind of the platform I tried to run on in 2022. And if I decide to run for Senate in 2024, either as a minor party candidate or a independent, then that's pretty much the same mentality we're going to have. Because right now there is no home for anybody who is physically conservative, whether it's a blue dog Democrat, whether it's a Ron Paul style Republican. There is no home for them in today's political world. And hopefully some party will stand up and become that option. I've been a member of the Libertarian Party for a number of years now, which good segue into our next topic on here. However, the Libertarian Party has some issues. And at this point, there are issues that I don't know whether they can be repaired or not. Libertarian Party basically has so many patches on their ship. There's a serious question now if it's still seaworthy when it comes to running for elections. They're having a big internal battle still now for the heart and soul of the Libertarian Party. And what's happening is they're basically eliminating a lot of their institutional knowledge. They've fired a number of people over the last couple of weeks. As of right now, they have nobody in their political division, and I believe I was just told they don't have anybody in their fundraising division. For a national party, you can't have that. Okay, I mean, you can't take a party seriously that does not have a major party seriously or national party seriously if they don't have a strategic plan in place, and they don't. You can't. I mean, you cannot run a national political party if you don't have somebody in place to do your recruiting and training of candidates. Right now, the Libertarian Party does not. They're more worried about who controls the party than they are getting people elected. From what I've been able to determine over the last couple of elections, for the Libertarian Party, getting people elected has not been their priority. But that's the purpose of a political party, is to get your candidates elected, get them into office so you can make a difference. And for the Libertarian Party, that has not been an option. As such, right now, I really don't know. I don't foresee the Libertarian Party being a viable third party option. And I hate to say it because I am still a member of my state Libertarian Party. I canceled my membership this year to the National Party because, quite honestly, they couldn't get their act together, and there's too many cults of personalities involved. And I wouldn't want to have to go out there and defend any of the people who are the mouthpieces of a lot of the state and national party. So for Libertarian Party right now, I just think it's a lot more baggage. And when you look at numbers, Libertarian Party has been around for 50 years. And in 50 years, they have not been able to make a real dent in the two-party system. When I looked at this year's results, I outperformed every member of the Libertarian Party running for major office when only the Republicans and the Democrats were present. Okay, we did that here in Minnesota. We ran on a Libertarian platform, but we ran outside the Libertarian Party. That was much more well received than anybody running under the party banner across the nation. When that happens, you have to start asking why. Okay, and Tub, Jerry Tub just said why is because they're so focused internally in their own circle. And to a certain extent, that's also the GOP's problem. They're so busy preaching to their own choir, they don't bring new people in. And to the Libertarian Party, it's the same thing. I mean, you have a lot of people there. They're focusing on bringing people in, but they're bringing the fringe in. The fringe will never get you that 5 or 10 or 15 or 20%. They won't get you that 50% plus one that it takes to win an election when only two parties are involved. Okay, uh, you need to think outside that, and the Libertarian Party just doesn't do it. Okay, uh, so at this point, I mean, it is a serious question I have on whether the Libertarian Party is feasible. Uh, Public perception. I mean, when I would go out there and tell people I was libertarian, a lot of the thought process was, well, that means liberal. Well, not really. No, it doesn't. But that was part of the thing you had to overcome, because for so many years, Libertarian Party focused on issues that were more important to the liberal base, which are very important issues. But if you're going to claim, if you're not going to be able to do it, get those percentages taken from just one party. You need to be able to pull from your independents and pull from both parties to be a viable third party option. Uh, Tough question: is it time that candidates just fall into one of the big two? I don't think so, Jerry. I really do think there is room for a third option, because we're not going to ever change anything from the big two. We're always going to be swamped. You can have the best of intentions when you move into that D or that R, and very few people have the willpower to be able to keep those principles. You do have a couple. You have your Rand Pauls, you have Ron Paul, you have your Doug Masseys. Uh, and on the Democrat side, for a certain extent, you have your Bernie Sanders, who, despite for years, was really the only one with a socialist mindset in the Democratic Party. It's not for me, but he did maintain those principles throughout the time of his political career. But those are very rare. And when there's only one or two of them, they're not really making a difference. There's nobody for them to work with to advance uh, their principles. I mean, one of the comments I just made on Twitter and on Facebook within the last couple of days is, one of my biggest regrets with not getting elected was now that I is not being able to work with Doug Massey to advance many of the issues we have with small farm production caused by regulations. But when you look at people like that, he's fighting those battles on his own. Okay, so I don't really think that you're absolutely right, Jerry. Joe Manchin for the Democrats is another perfect example. Uh, so I don't really think that going through those parties are the option. I mean, I reconsidered it this year. I had people from the GOP come up and ask me if I would consider running for Senate for them. And it's still a possibility, but I'm definitely not leaning in that direction currently. A lot's going on with the Republican Party that will become a lot clearer on December 3rd, when they have their annual convention and they elect their new chair. A lot will tell us if they're going to go the establishment norm that they've been doing for the last few years, or whether they tack a little bit towards the grassroots. That's actually going to have a lot to do with what happens in this state, as far as even another new third party, because that's what's going to however they go are going to drive people away from the GOP. And the question is, who's going to pick up those people? Pat, as soon as a freshman is elected, the indoctrination camp of the establishment gets to work to get you one of them. You're absolutely right. Uh, Eric Mortensen is doing mentioned that in a video yesterday. I think he's going to be doing something on a podcast within the next couple days, to kind of talk about that whole procedure. Uh, so yeah, that's a lot of my thoughts on the third parties right now. Do we have any other questions out there? And while I'm waiting for any other questions to come out, I want to put out some of the things we have coming up in the upcoming weeks. Starting next week, we're going to have our first guest on the show, and that's going to be Mark Lindquist. Mark's a buddy of mine. He was initially running against me for Congress. He decided to go to Ukraine, work on humanitarian aid projects. Basically, it was medical projects to get medical equipment to the people of Ukraine, and even to their soldiers. Uh, so Mark's gonna come on here and he's gonna tell us what he saw on the ground, what is actually happening in the Ukraine. What I love about Mark and what he did is it shows that American people can voluntarily band together to make a major difference in something going on in the world, and that we didn't need the government to do it. Okay, to me that goes to the heart of what a lot of our programs with the Libertarian Party and so forth is about. It's about voluntarily doing something and not being forced to, uh, and showing that it can be done, even on these huge issues such as a war. Okay, so Mark's going to be our guest next week. The following week, we're still working on our guest. The goal for the following week is to have a lawyer on board who can kind of tell people, especially homesteaders, what rights they have if a state agent comes to their property. Say you have a state health agent come to your property because they hear you have chickens and they're concerned about avian bird flu. Do you have to let them on? Do you have to let them inspect? Uh, we're also going to cover the fact that if you do uh, register with the state to do these things, if you are in fact giving up some of your rights to tell these people no and keep your registration, your licenses. Because there are even eggs. I mean, to sell eggs, you're still supposed to be you're supposed to be filing with the state, stating that, hey, you know what, we're going to be selling eggs off a farm. So these are a lot of issues that I think people really have an interest in, especially with the homesteading community that fall, so many of which fall into under my base as being that liberty based, we're on our own type of support ourselves type of person, and what so much of western Minnesota and northern Minnesota consists of. So that's our plan for the show in a couple weeks. Steve Tavero has been one of my huge supporters down in the southwestern portion of the state. One issue is Dems that are always vote Dems, and some of us conservatives always vote Rhino. It's frustrating as heck. It was nice to have a better option. You know what? I completely agree, Steve, and that's kind of what we're pushing for, to make sure you have those options. But I'll give you a surprise. I'll give you this much: we had a lot of Democrats who voted for us this last election. Okay, and a lot of them were hardcore Democrats that just weren't happy with their options either. Okay, so it did split the Democrat vote as well. So it's very important to remember that when we run these third party campaigns, this is not taking from just one party or just the other party. We're taking from both. It's the two parties that keep on saying that you're only taking from one because they're trying to scare you into not voting for that third party because you're going to help the bad guys. Okay, that's just a tool that the Republicans and the Democrats both use to keep their voters loyal. Okay, so don't ever let them lure you into believing that. Ultimately, Jerry again. Ultimately, Massey and Rand are Republicans, and they have to walk that line and vote accordingly. You know what? To an extent, yes. But if you look at like Ron Paul a lot of times was the only lone voter to vote in a certain way in Congress because he stuck to his principles. They do have to continue to work within the party, but they do have a little bit of leeway. But yeah, at the same time, when that party comes down and says, hey, you support us or we're going to support a primary challenger against you, a lot of times they do have to fall in line, which is the great thing running outside that third party platform. Hey, Paul, I agree. Mark is a great guy. I mean, I've had lunch with him a few times. I've been to a couple of his fundraisers that for what he's doing for Ukraine. Uh, I think very highly of him as a person and a friend of mine. And when we were both running, okay, when you're and he decided he was going to run third party as well. That's a very small number of us who are willing to do that, and to have to have had that other person that we can kind of lean on and talk about the issues we run into as third party candidates has been great. Angie's comment: Minnesota is the prime headquarters for corruption and media helps create the hell Minnesota is experiencing for a circus show for all to see. You know what, Angie? You are 100% on board. You're 100% correct. I ran into this very much on as far as the media helping create the issue when we ran. No matter what we did, we could not get media coverage. We went in there and we kicked butt on that debate. I expected us to at least have some coverage of going, hey, this candidate, Bull Johnson, he's running outside the two-party system, but you know what? He did well in this debate. He held his own. He showed himself to be a legitimate candidate, but they ignored us. They continued to ignore us all the way through. And I'm not 100% sure on how to fix that. I mean, that's been that was really an eye opener for me after the election when we only got our 5.5% of how do you address that? Because without the media coming back and basically saying, yeah, these people are legitimate, people don't even know about us. The number of people who did not know I was even running in this district after campaigning for 18 months was really discouraging. So yeah, that is the real fight, as Patrick said. That is part of the real fight, and you know it is part of the corruption. Uh, it is something that we're gonna have to band together to fight, and eventually we're gonna make enough noise where we can't be ignored. Uh, that's one of the things that excites me about the possibility of this other new third party forming is whenever you have that, you get a certain amount of splash when they first come out. So I'm interested in see how that works. But then you have issues like the Forward Party from Andrew Yang. He came out with all this bang, all this sizzle, no substance. And I've asked Forward Party, what exactly do y'all stand for? And as of yet, the only thing I've gotten is they're there to push ranked choice voting. Well, if you do that, you're just a one issue party you become. And what happens when that issue is reached? That's the problem legal marijuana now is facing is there's a very good chance in these next few months recreational marijuana is going to be legalized in Minnesota. At that point, what is the purpose of the legalized marijuana now party? It's become legalized. When you're a one issue party and you've reached and that issue is reached, what happens to you? And I guess we're going to find out the answer to that question in 2024 with the Senate race. All right. So, do we have any other questions? The media does love the Democrats, and but you know what? When you come on the other side, Fox News and so forth, I mean, they love the GOP. The problem is we have no neutral media anymore. Most of these small papers have all been gobbled up by the corporate media. And so I want to clarify there. It's not that the media loves them, the corporate media loves them because they're the ones who are protecting the corporate media. They're the ones who are giving them the news bites, the sound bites that it takes to keep tuners viewers tuning in. But I want to thank everybody for joining us. We're about 35 minutes in, which when I'm by myself is kind of long for what we try to do. And if we don't have any last minute comments, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Please tell people about us if you're joining us on Facebook, please go to YouTube and still subscribe to our channel. Part of the hope for this is us to be able to grow the show to the point of where we can monetize it and start using it to pay off some of our campaign debt. We're about 25 grand into campaign debt. that this is a way for you to support our being able to do something about that without actually having to come out of your pocket with any money. So please share that information for us. Get the word out about the show. Share, share, share. Join us, participate in the show, because the show is all about you guys. Okay, I mean it's about what we're trying to accomplish. But the thing is, if you guys don't care, then this thing goes nowhere. So I appreciate everybody who showed up and weighed in and liked and spent some time on the show. And hey, we look forward to next week when we bring Mark on board. And I'm really looking forward to that. As you're going to see over these next few weeks, hopefully the quality of the show will improve as we get a little bit more equipment in as far as our lighting and microphones and stuff like that, so we can put on a better show for you. So thanks very much, guys. I appreciate it. And everybody, have a great day. This is Bull signing out. Remember, independent is power.